Good morning, boys and girls, afternoon, evening. This video lesson's on the Roman government and the structure of the Roman Republic. In this picture here, you can see this is supposed to be a painting of the Roman Senate. Our learning objective is to describe the structure of the Roman Republic. Roman Republic. Is that what's missing? Structure. Structure means the shape and the parts of something. So let's say you had a house, for example. Por ejemplo. And you have, upstairs and downstairs. And you have bedrooms, yes, bathrooms, kitchen, stuff, and so on. So that would be... Ooh, my microphone fell. That would be the structure of a house. And so the structure of the Roman Republic just means there's different parts of it, I guess you can say. All right. Summary question. There's only one, and this time it's like partly given to you. What was the structure? And then you have to guess what goes in there. And try not to think too hard like this little guy right here. All right, let's go to the building background. When the plebeians complained about Rome's government in the 400s BC, the city's leaders knew they had to do something. If the people stayed unhappy, they might rise up and overthrow the whole government. Okay, so remember, the plebeians were the poor people. Well, I don't say poor people, but commoners. Overthrow means to get rid of or destroy, kind of. Probably not destroy, but get rid of, replace with something else. And our word is government. Spelled government. Okay, so that's something we learned before, building background. Let's go to the CFU. Why did the city's leaders feel they needed to do something about the complaints from the plebeians? All right, so here we go with our new stuff, concept development. To calm the angry plebeians, the patricians made some changes to Rome's government. For example, they created new offices that could only be held by plebeians. The people who held these offices protected the plebeians' rights and interests. Gradually, the distinctions between patricians and plebeians began to disappear, but that took a very long time. All right, so remember the plebeians again, commoners. Patricians are nobles, wealthy landowners, acting as senators a lot of times. Let's see what else we got here. Gradually means slowly. Slowly, the distinctions. This means differences in a way. So slowly the differences between these two people, groups of people, patricians and plebeians, began to disappear. But it took a long time. Okay, let's go to the question. What did the patricians do to try and calm the angry plebeians? All right, next paragraph. As a result of the changes the patricians made, Rome developed a tripartite, as I say it, tripartite government, or a government with three parts. Each part had its own responsibilities and duties. To fulfill its duties, each part of the government had its own powers, rights, and privileges. Okay, so tripartite. That is a good word. That's not our word though, but that's a good one. And it comes from the word triple or tri, meaning three, and government. So a government with three parts essentially is what it is. And our word was patricians, right? Patricians. Of course, responsibilities and duty. Duties just means like what you have to do, basically. Privileges are things that can be given to you or taken from you. Like, for example, when you turn 16, I think 16 and a half or something like that, you can get your license, driver's license. That is considered a privilege. You can earn it or it can be taken away from you. A right is different because a right means, it cannot be messed with. It can't be taken from you unless you're a criminal and you're in jail. Then yeah, the right to freedom is taken from you. So then, what is the difference? Your right is something that you're born with, kind of thing, right? You're born with it. People can mess with your rights. A privilege, you're not born with it, right? You're not automatically born with a driver's license. Anywho, let's see. Question is, what kind of government did the Romans create? And this picture here is just showing you the tripartite government. It's three parts here. The consuls were the most powerful. Think of them like as our president, except there were two of them back then, two consuls. Then the Senate, the next powerful. They're the ones that advise the consuls. We have a Senate today, and the assembly is made up of the plebeians, I suppose. And you can see its power here. This actually should be backwards, this triangle, because there are fewer consuls than there are assembly. Somebody messed up on that one. And so the United States did copy the Romans in the three-part government style, the tripartite. We have our legislative branch where laws are created. And we have the executive branch that enforces those laws. And then we have the judicial branch, which judges. And it judges either people or it can judge whether a law is right or not, meaning constitutional. It has to be within the rights of the Constitution. And if it's not, the law is considered null and void or unconstitutional and should not be followed. Such was the case with the Jim Crow era in the South. That's another story. Magistrates. Look for the paragraph that says magistrates. The first part of Rome's government was made up of elected officials or magistrates. The two most powerful magistrates in Rome were called consuls. The consuls were elected each year to run the city and lead the army. There were two consuls so that no one person would be too powerful. Okay, let's see here. So officials just means people who run the government. That's all that means. Let's see, we're called, consuls is our word. Magistrates are people who ran the city of Rome. They're not around anymore. Ran, past tense. And that's about it for that paragraph. So again, consuls were kind of like our president, except there were two of them, and they only ran for 1 year, I believe, or was it 2 years? I gotta check on that. Why were there two consuls and not just one? It's a good question. And here's a little bit about the consuls. They led the government and the army. They serve for 1 year. So unlike our president who served for 4 years each term and can serve for 8 total, these guys only served for 1. Had power over all citizens, but there were 2 consuls so that no one person would be too powerful. That's going to be a big thing in Rome, a big theme. Romans were very afraid of one person becoming too powerful. Remember the Etruscan kings that were overthrown? They still remember that time, and they don't want to go back to kings anymore because they know how bad that can be when one person is ruling. So they're very afraid of that. So they put measures in place. Instead of 1 consul, let's have 2. Instead of serving for 8 years or 4, let's just do 1. That kind of a thing. All right, let's talk about the Senate now. The second part of Rome's government was the Senate. The Roman Senate was a council of wealthy and powerful Romans that advised the city's leaders. It was originally created to advise Rome's kings. After the kings were gone, the Senate continued to meet to advise consuls. All right, let's see. Our word is Senate. And like we said before, our country, the United States, has a Senate as well. And these were wealthy and powerful Romans, so they would be the patricians, most likely. Advise means to, give advice. Tell them what they think and what they think the leader should do. First came out with the kings to advise the kings, but after the kings were gone, they just kind of continued. The Senate stayed intact. And although councils and leaders, powerful leaders, would come and go, the senators served for life, so they would stay there for quite a while. Question: what was the purpose of the Roman Senate? All right, turn the page. Unlike magistrates, senators, members of the Senate, held office for life. By the time the Republic was created, the Senate had 300 members. At first, most senators were patricians, but as time passed, many wealthy plebeians became senators as well. Because magistrates became senators after completing their terms in office, most did not want to anger the Senate and risk their future jobs. All right, our word is had 300 members is our words here. All right, so they held office for life. So this is interesting that plebeians were able to become senators later on. It just goes to show you how the plebeians did gain some power after a while. Magistrates, again, were people who ran the city. Term is just how long they're in office. And there you go. All right, question is, how long did senators hold office? That's one question, and the next, how would this make them powerful? This is a picture of, or a painting of what a painting, whatever, senator would have looked like. His bald hair. But anyway, the most important thing is the robe with the red outlining here. You can always spot a senator with that kind of clothing. Some things about them: they advised the councils, the leaders. They served for life, which made them powerful. And they had control of financial affairs. Here's another question for you. Why do you think he is old? Here's another picture. This is a photograph from a TV show called Rome from HBO. It's a great series. It's not for kids though. A lot of blood and other stuff. This is supposed to be Cicero, one of the great senators of Roman times. Great orator, that means speaker. And the Romans really prided themselves in speaking well, speaking in public. All right, let's talk about I think this is the last part. Oh, there's two more paragraphs. Assemblies and tribunes. The third part of Rome's government, the part that protected the common people, had two branches. The first branch was made up of assemblies. Both patricians and plebeians took part in these assemblies. Their primary job was to elect the magistrates who ran the city of Rome. All right, so our word is primary. Their primary job was to elect. That's more than one word. It's a bunch of words. All right, so this is our third part of the Roman government. Two branches. So that just means that the third part had two branches. So we have the first part, the second part. The third part was broken up into two more parts, just to make things a little more confusing for us. And then the first branch was made up of assemblies. And the second branch we'll see later. Assemblies were just a group of people who would get together and elect the people who are going to run the city, the magistrates. Okay, let's see what the question is. Is there a question? Yes, there is. What was the first branch made up of? All right, last paragraph, I believe. The second branch was made up of a group of elected officials called tribunes. Elected by the plebeians, tribunes had the ability to veto or prohibit actions by other officials. Veto means I forbid in Latin, the Romans' language. This veto power made tribunes very powerful in Rome's government. To keep them from abusing their power, come on now. To keep them from abusing their power, each tribune remained in office only 1 year. Our word is I forbid. Yeah, and that's basically what veto meant. This veto power is still around. We got it from the Romans. Tribunes, these are guys who are elected by the plebeians. And these guys were pretty powerful because they had the ability to veto here. Let's see. Prohibit means to deny, stop from doing. Remember, Latin was the Romans' language. Abusing. Know what that means? Sure we do. Okay, question. Who did the assemblies and tribunes protect or represent? We got two questions. What made tribunes powerful? And here's Bill Clinton. You guys probably don't remember him. He was before, you don't remember him, before George Bush. So today, presidents have the power to veto, forbid laws from passing, just like the tribunes had back in Rome. This is true. So remember the legislative branch? They make the law, but it has to go to the president so he can sign it. So if he says, no, I'm not going to sign it, that's called veto. So he vetoes and the law goes back to the legislature. The legislature can then override the president's power if 2/3 of them agree. 2/3, 66.6% have to say, forget you, president. But if it's not 2/3, then the president wins. Kind of, you could think of it that way. This is just like a little toy statue of what a tribune would have looked like. All right, skill development part. It says, using the text, organize the three branches of the Roman government. For each branch, list A, how long they could serve, and B, their duties and responsibilities or powers. So on your paper, you make sure you write down magistrates. for the first column. In the middle will be Senate. And to the right, we have assemblies and tribunes. So think about how long the magistrates could hold office. And you write it down here. So you can do it in bullet points. You don't have to write, you can't write complete sentences in there, it's too small. And then write their duties and responsibilities. Same thing for the Senate. How long did they serve? Their duties and responsibilities. And same thing for the assemblies and tribunes. How long could they serve? And their duties and responsibilities. All right, don't forget to answer the summary questions. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Yes, I turned it in there. Yes, thank you.